The National Desk, America's News Now.
The Federal Reserve raising interest rates again, with inflation easing but not yet reaching the target. Could more aggressive action follow, risking recession?
I would say it is certainly possible that we would raise funds again at the September meeting if the data warranted. And I would also say it's possible that we would choose to hold steady at that meeting.
Then it's like a hot tub for some and an extreme danger for others. How hot Florida waters are right now, triggering warnings about loss of marine life. And the plea deal that wasn't, the back and forth in court ending in a pause. And what's next for Hunter Biden?
The government's not for sale, and neither can any American get by with what he's purported to have done. Investigations will intensify, and I think justice will be done.
This is the National Desk, America's News Now. I'm Eugene Ramirez. New tonight, interest rates are now at their highest level in 22 years. After a one-month pause, the Federal Reserve today, in a unanimous decision, again raised rates a quarter of a point to roughly 5.3%. Now, this is the 11th hike in the last year and a half. While inflation as a whole has been dropping, consumer prices were still up 3% over last year, which is still higher than the 2% goal. Chairman Powell indicated that this might not be the last rate hike and will assess again in September if inflation doesn't fall more.
We have been seeing the effects of our policy tightening on demand in the most interest rate sensitive sectors of the economy, particularly housing and investment. It will take time, however, for the full effects of our ongoing monetary restraint to be realized.
After a lengthy back and forth hearing, U.S. District Judge Mary Ellen Norica did not accept Hunter Biden's guilty pleas for 2 tax-related misdemeanors as planned. Biden ended up pleading not guilty before leaving court this morning. Now, the judge, who was appointed by Donald Trump, had many questions about the broad immunity being offered by the prosecution and indicated that adding that gun charge to the plea was, quote, unusual. The judge asked Hunter Biden if he would still plead guilty if other charges were coming. He said he would not. Prosecutors did admit in court further investigations into the president's son are ongoing. Now, the judge did open the door now for a new plea deal if all sides could come together. She gave them 30 days to come to a new agreement. Another hearing will be happening at a later date. Hunter Biden did not speak afterwards as expected, but lawmakers sounded off on today's events. Listen here.
I think the most important thing to remember is that Hunter Biden is a private citizen, and I think anyone that's a private citizen in this space has a right, obviously, to have their day in court, and the judge has a right to make changes to this deal. So I think that we have to let the process play out.
It's very telling that the judge intervened here and said, basically, no, I'm not going to approve some sweeping blanket deal. I mean, that tells you that the court has serious concerns about other potential charges here, and also the scope of the deal, which seemed outrageous from the beginning.
We'll follow future developments on that. Now, right now, the historic heat wave continues to drift eastward with more than 46 million Americans under heat alerts today. Temperatures have climbed over 100 degrees in some parts of the Midwest. Temperatures in the Northeast forecast to peak Friday. This weekend, the heat's expected to move back south. Now, if you live in a city, you may be feeling temperatures 8 degrees hotter than people in rural areas. A new study by the nonprofit Climate Central finds about 41 million Americans live in urban heat islands. Buildings and pavement retain more heat than forest, grass, and open water. Urban heat islands in cities can be more dangerous during record heat waves like the one we're experiencing right now. In fact, Florida water has reportedly reached triple-digit temperatures. The National Weather Service meteorologist saying that a buoy at Manatee Bay hit 101.1 degrees Monday evening and 100.2 the night before. Now, this could potentially be a record here, but scientists are not sure it's accurate, so they're not confirming that just yet. But we do know that the heat wave has damaged and even destroyed some coral off the shores of Florida. In the border crisis now, Republicans taking another step toward trying to impeach Secretary of Homeland Security, accusing him of making matters at the U.S. southern border worse and being dishonest about his actions. The hearing highlighted another dividing line in Washington and further exposed the partisan problems. The National Desk chief political correspondent Scott Thuman has the latest from Capitol Hill.
Homeland Security Secretary Alejandro Mayorkas defending his job performance and trying to fend off Republican calls for impeachment raised in a House hearing Wednesday.
For the first time in modern history, more people are showing up at the ports of entry than running through some Bush in Yuma, Arizona. And the reason they're showing up at the ports of entry is because you've got the turnstile open.
Congressman, I disagree with everything you have said.
Right, but you can disagree all you want, but what you won't provide is any number.
Republicans allege more than 100 migrants on the terror watch list have tried crossing the southern border this year, in addition to skyrocketing amounts of deadly fentanyl.
My Republican colleagues claim that the border is open. Is the border open, Mr. Secretary?
No, it is not.
Democrats highlight data showing encounters are down 70% over just the last 10 weeks. But others say it's too early to declare victory, with some suggesting the drop may be temporary.
It has been broken for as long as I can remember.
It has become an almost expected routine these days. Republicans call to remove high-level members of the Biden administration, putting Democrats in a constant state of rebuttal.
Under the Trump administration, the borders were secure. Biden came in the very first day, reversed all of the policies that had secured our borders, and we're now facing the worst illegal mass migration in the history of this country.
Prompting Texas Governor Greg Abbott to install new floating spiked barriers in the Rio Grande. He says to defend the state. Critics call them deadly. The Justice Department this week filed suit to have them removed.
Texas has a 1,241-mile border. The buoys are only about 1,000 feet. What the governor's trying to do is just do something symbolic.
All still searching for answers. Now back to that hearing, contentious enough that Democrats on multiple occasions reminded the room that this was an oversight hearing, not an impeachment one, even though many Republicans would have liked for it to be that.
Sure,
Eugene.
would like, Scott, but is it a real possibility that they could have Mayorkas removed?
Well, very slim. Even if the full House got behind that notion, it is highly improbable that a Democratic-led Senate would follow suit.
All right, Scott Thiemann reporting in Washington tonight. Thank you.
This week has been good bipartisan cooperation and a string of
a scary moment there for Senator Mitch McConnell today. He suddenly just stopped speaking in the middle of a sentence and then stared blankly for about 25 seconds during a news conference. That's what you're seeing right now. It was all about tonight's Senate NDAA vote. Eventually, his colleagues asked if he was okay, and then Senator Barrasso escorted him away. Now, 12 minutes later, Senator McConnell walked back to that press that was gathered there to say he was fine and just a little lightheaded. He's 81 years old, and the Senate Minority Leader spent a week in an inpatient rehabilitation center after a fall in March. News tonight, 11 people were hurt after a construction crane partially collapsed onto a street in New York City this morning. It was on top of a high-rise in Midtown Manhattan when it caught fire. A crane operator fled after he was unable to put that fire out. More than 200 first responders were at that scene. 2 firefighters reported having chest pain. One was taken to the hospital. The cause of the fire on that crane still being investigated right now. And developing now, a lawsuit claiming the health insurance company Cigna illegally used an algorithm to reject hundreds of thousands of patient claims without even examining them. It says that the algorithm spent about 1 second on each review, just 1 second, and doctors then signed off on them. Cigna says their process is similar to other insurers. The company has about 18 million members in the United States. Happening today, jurors deciding whether a man charged with murder in a stabbing spree is mentally competent to stand trial. Prosecutors say Carlos Dominguez started stabbing people after he was expelled from the University of California, Davis. 2 people were killed, 1 was injured. Defense attorneys say Dominguez showed signs of schizophrenia. That hearing is expected to last several days. A lawyer for the man accused of killing 4 University of Idaho students last year says he was not there when those crimes occurred. Brian Kohberger is charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder. Kohberger's legal defense team says there's evidence showing he was at a different location at the time of the stabbings. The filing does not include details of where he may have been, allegedly, but says prosecutors will get that information. A federal judge has thrown out the military conviction and dishonorable discharge of former Army Sergeant Bo Bergdahl, among other decisions. The judge ruled that the presiding military judge of Bergdahl's Army desertion and misbehavior case did not disclose a potential conflict of interest within the Trump administration, and then vacated all of his rulings after October of 2017. Police departments nationwide right now facing a critical shortage of officers. And the problem seems to not be going away. The National Desk's Angela Brown is looking into hiring and retirement numbers and the worrying trend that comes from those numbers.
We have the latest report from the Police Executive Research Forum. The bottom line here, agencies are losing officers faster than they can hire new ones. This report says hiring is picking up, but so are resignations. Responding agencies reporting nearly 50% more resignations in 2022 than in 2019. Police departments in cities like Seattle are stretched thin.
And the bottom line is we don't have enough cops based upon the workload that we're being asked to do. And cops are tired.
And some cities are getting desperate. Police One reporting the city of Vallejo is considering declaring an emergency due to police staffing. The spokesperson for the National Police Association says we are facing a recruiting crisis.
We are seeing cities that usually have 500 to 1,000 people show up to fill out an application and take the first test for the police department. We'll have 30, 40, 50.
Some departments are offering sky-high bonuses. Take the city of Alameda, a $75,000 cash incentive, $25,000 upon swearing in, $50,000 after completing a field training program. Black Lives Matter activists say that money could be used for something else.
We should be putting that money into education, into housing, into food security, things that create crime. So when people don't have their basic needs met, that's firestorm for, things to begin happening.
In a new report, the Nonpartisan Council on Criminal Justice examined crime data from 30 U.S. cities, finding a 9% drop or 202 fewer homicides in the first half of 2023 compared to 2022. But homicides across those cities are up 24% during the same period in 2019. And just last May, we reported that 50% of homicides are going unsolved. In Washington, D.C., I'm Angela Brown.
Alabama's redistricting fight headed back to court. Plaintiffs now have until Friday to file any objection to the latest map drawn by Republicans that does not establish a second majority black district, as was ordered by the Supreme Court. And this new map boosts black representation in a majority white district, but it also lowers it in the only majority black district. A hearing is now expected to take place in August. Singer Sinead O'Connor died today. Her family did not offer the cause of death. O'Connor rose to international fame in 1990 with the smash hit Nothing Compares to You. The Irish singer famously ripped up a picture of the Pope John Paul II on Saturday Night Live back in 1991. Sinead O'Connor was 56 and she's survived by 3 children. Her youngest child, Shane, passed last year by suicide. Coming up, are we alone in the universe? What came out of a major hearing today on UFOs and the government's handling of sightings? Then, why the Federal Trade Commission is planning to sue Amazon and what could happen if the lawsuit is successful. And later, how one state is cracking down on hemp products designed to appeal to kids, allegedly. We'll be right back. Gas prices this week going up. According to AAA, the average cost of a gallon of gas right now is $3.69 for regular. That's up 5 cents from yesterday and 12 cents from last week. It's also 12 cents higher than it was a month ago, but $3.69 is still a lot lower than the average from a year ago. 7 major car companies planning to build an electric vehicle charging network to compete with Tesla's. The automakers say the multi-billion-dollar investment will nearly double the number of fast charging plugs in the U.S. and Canada. The charging stations will start rolling out by next summer. Everyone with an EV will be able to use them, they say. Tonight, a congressional panel investigating UFOs holding a hearing Wednesday, digging into the lack of government transparency on the topic and the consequences of keeping information from Congress and the American people. National correspondent Kayla Gaskins joins us now from Capitol Hill.
Intelligence Agency.
Former intelligence official David Grush telling Congress the United States is in possession of a crashed alien aircraft.
Do you believe that our government is in possession of UAPs?
Absolutely, based on interviewing over 40 witnesses over 4 years.
And alien bodies.
Do we have the bodies of the pilots who piloted this craft?
Biologics came with some of these recoveries, yeah.
Were they, I guess, human or non-human?
Non-human.
Republican and Democratic lawmakers are highly concerned information is being withheld from Congress on these UFOs, which the government now calls UAPs, unidentified aerial phenomena.
It's really important that we're here in a bipartisan way to have this conversation, which really, to the heart of it, is about national security.
This is an issue of government transparency. We can't trust a government that does not trust its people.
2 former Navy pilots also testified Wednesday. Retired Navy Commander David Fravor says he saw UAPs firsthand off the coast of San Diego in 2004.
It rapidly accelerated in front of us and disappeared. We have nothing that can stop in midair and go the other direction.
These 3 witnesses say these sightings happen all the time. The problem is no one wants to talk about them, and investigations are reportedly sparse.
What is shocking to us is that the incident was never investigated. None of my crew were ever questioned.
Those who do raise concerns allegedly risk retaliation.
It was very brutal and very unfortunate, some of the tactics they used to hurt me both professionally and personally.
Do you have any personal knowledge of people who have been harmed or injured in efforts to cover up or conceal these extraterrestrial technology?
Yes.
Have anyone been murdered?
I have to be careful asking that question. I directed people with that knowledge to the appropriate authorities.
On the Senate side, their version of this year's National Defense Authorization Act includes the creation of a review board specifically tasked with declassifying UFO records. On Capitol Hill, I'm Kayla Gaskins for the National Desk, America's News Now.
Well, right now, Amazon's preparing for a lawsuit coming from the Federal Trade Commission as early as next week. The FTC finalizing an antitrust suit against the company. It's expected to challenge a host of Amazon's business practices, including how it steers sellers to its own services, like shipping and warehousing services. If successful, the suit could ultimately break up parts of the $1.3 trillion company. Rudy Giuliani has admitted that he made defamatory statements about 2 Georgia election workers. This comes after those workers accused Giuliani of smearing them after the 2020 election and sued him. Now, Giuliani did not say his statements caused damages to the workers, and he argues his voter fraud statements are considered protected speech. A federal judge has to review the filings. New tonight, actor Kevin Spacey found not guilty of sexually assaulting 4 men. The actor had pleaded not guilty to 9 charges related to incidents between 2001 and 2013. Prosecutors said Spacey got away with his behavior because he's a celebrity. Spacey, also turning 64 today, said he was enormously grateful to the jury for examining all the evidence in the case.
I'm enormously grateful to the jury for having taken the time to examine all of the evidence and all of the facts carefully.
Now, sexual abuse lawsuits against Michael Jackson's businesses may be brought back. 2 men who accused the late singer of abusing them as children sued 2 of Jackson's corporations after he died. In 2021, a judge ruled the corporations had no legal duty to protect the children. Now, an appeals court ordered the cases back to trial, but lawyers of Jackson's estate asked the appeals court to reverse course today. We'll follow the developments on that front. By the numbers now, a new study connecting olive oil to brain health. Harvard researchers say having more than half a tablespoon of olive oil a day is linked to a 25% lower risk of dying of dementia. Swapping margarine and mayonnaise out for the same amount of olive oil a day lowers the risk by 14%. The antioxidants help protect against oxidative stress and inflammation. Service has been restored for Verizon customers after a major outage this morning. Thousands of people couldn't use their smartphones or internet or even call police if they needed to do that. The biggest issues were with the cell phones, followed by mobile internet. Most of the outages were on the East Coast in cities like New York and D.C., as well as Boston. A new study shows artificial intelligence may soon help us gather more information through smartwatches. Medical reporter Liz Bonus explains how it could help reduce your odds of a heart event.
This new heart study found we can get better heart data from wearable devices such as your Apple Watch with the help of artificial intelligence. Those who are now conducting trials to reduce the odds of heart events and strokes say it could be a real game changer. It's all because right now the Apple Watch is in use to help study the heart's rhythm changes. Dr. Richard Becker of Ohio's UC College of Medicine is one of the lead researchers in this national trial called REACT-AF, or atrial fibrillation. The trial gives you an Apple Watch, and you take medication only if it alerts researchers you need it.
We could get the best of both worlds. We use a blood thinning medicine to reduce stroke when it's needed, but not have the risk of bleeding should a person not have recurring episodes of atrial fibrillation.
But now researchers in this study in the journal Nature have figured out what may one day help us take this study a step further. When a watch wiggles on your wrist, it creates what's called noise. This study found AI can overcome that obstacle.
They modeled in such a way that they could take out the noise, meaning there's a lot of artifact from movement and breathing and a variety of things. What that means is that with a wearable device, we might be able to tell a lot about not just a person's heart rhythm, as we're studying in REACT-AF, but also about the pumping activity of their heart.
And studying pumping activity through a wearable device in addition to electrical activity could help us potentially prevent a lot more heart events.
It gives us a reach that we currently don't have.
Now, anyone in the country can participate in this heart rhythm study. It is not yet being used with AI. That's important to note. I'm medical reporter Liz Bonus. Back to you.
We're following reports of children overdosing on THC after consuming hemp products that some say look like candy or snacks. How one state is responding when we return. The National Desk taking the pulse of America. Our team of nearly 4,000 local journalists bringing you the headlines coast to coast. And right now we start in the Washington, D.C. area with plane crash victims. Families saying that the DOJ broke the law when it gave Boeing an immunity deal.
Less than 6 months apart, two Boeing 737 MAX planes crashed, killing everyone on board. As part of an immunity deal with the Department of Justice, Boeing admitted to misleading federal regulators about the safety of its planes. In exchange, the company and its executives would be protected from criminal prosecution. Under the Crime Victims' Rights Act, the law requires victims be consulted in the immunity agreement process. But in this case, we're left out, which is why families are asking a federal court to invalidate the deal.
So it's very important that this court turn back and say, okay, you broke the law, the Department of Justice, you didn't consult with victims. Now that the agreement is not valid. We have to make a new plan, a new prosecution.
Basilio Gallegos says migrants sell almost everything they have to come to the United States. He says he thought a family lived next door. Instead, the Bexar County Sheriff's Office found much more.
Deputies discovered 5 smuggling victims inside of the residence, all originating from Mexico.
Deputy Garcia says it all started from a traffic stop. Deputies found a kilo of cocaine in the vehicle. After further investigation, it led them to this home in the 400 block of Pyron on the southeast side.
Stoner Patch Kids and medicated Skittles are exactly the type of THC treats Florida wants to take off the shelves, replacing them with something seen as less tempting for kids.
So the packaging is just pretty standard. It's not meant to be flashy or appeal to anybody, younger.
In the state's largest hemp inspection sweep called Operation Candy Crush, the Department of Agriculture and Consumer Services looked into nearly 500 shops across 37 counties, searching for anyone selling high-potency hemp products and packaging that appeals to kids.
Coming up here on the National Desk, the U.S. women's national team taking the soccer field once again for a major rematch at the Women's World Cup. Details in 90 seconds. A big night for the United States women's national soccer team taking the pitch in Australia. It's the team's second game in group play of the Women's World Cup. At 9 p.m. Eastern, that's when they play the Netherlands in a rematch of the 2019 Women's World Cup final. Both teams winning their first game. The U.S. won rather easily, 3-0 over Vietnam, while the Netherlands had a harder-fought 1-0 victory over Portugal. The winner of this game guarantees a spot in the elimination tournament in the World Cup. Good luck to them. That's all for now. Join me tonight for the evening edition of the National Desk. You want to check your local listings for the exact time. I'm Eugene Ramirez. Thanks for watching. I'll see you soon.